No, Strong Opinion Sports has a store. Shirts, hoodies, everything. It's all on sale until the end of November. Go buy stuff. The headline here is that the University of Washington offered to play a game against BYU, because the rivalry game between Washington and Washington State was canceled due to COVID. And so UW, Washington, said, hey, BYU, want to play us? Like, we're free. We got a free weekend. And BYU said no. And the result of BYU saying no, BYU turning down the game, oh boy, it caused all kinds of hilariously compelling drama. It's this BYU Washington game is one of my favorite probably storylines and occurrences in all of football all year. It's really the outpouring of anger and frustration and conspiracy theories on Twitter and in articles and in fan messages to me are really kind of crazy. And so now I want to be as fair as I possibly can be. I don't really care about Washington. I don't really care about BYU. It's just I'm an outside perspective observing and having a lot of fun doing it. Now it makes sense why BYU said no, because Pac-12 protocol is that BYU can play UW as long as there isn't another Pac-12 school available to play that day. So basically UW said, hey, want to schedule a game against us? Oh, except by the way, we can pull out at any time and there's nothing you can do. So UW really wouldn't actually give a true commitment to the BYU game because, BYU wanted a real commitment. And the reality is that this weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, UW is actually playing Utah instead of BYU. And it never would have been BYU because in the reality, in the end of the day, is Utah was available because their game against Arizona State was canceled. And because Utah is a Pac-12 school, the University of Utah, they're always going to get priority over BYU. If Utah has nobody to play and UW is playing BYU, who's not, and BYU not being a Pac-12 school, the Pac-12 is going to step in and say, hey, UW, we have a rule. You got to play Utah. You can't be playing BYU when another opponent is available in our conference because they have to look after their own. It makes sense to me why the Pac-12 has this rule. The Pac-12 has to take care of their own team and make sure they secure revenue. But it's also unfortunate. And so I want to point out, for the sake of fairness, I want to point out that even if BYU had said yes to this game, they would have been left in the dust anyway. This game would have never happened because the Pac-12 would have made UW play Utah instead regardless. We all caught up? Because again, the Pac-12 has to look after their own and secure them revenue. Here's the problem with everything I just said. Nobody is going to do the research I did to figure out what I just said. Nobody is going to understand the nuance of this situation. Because humans love drama. And humans don't want to do research. Humans love to read headlines and go, oh boy, can you believe X or believe Y or Z? People love reading headlines and people hate doing research. It's just what I have found in my, I'm not that old, and what I found in America, we hate doing that kind of stuff. And it's way more fun, let's be honest too. We love a conspiracy, we love to believe stuff, and it's way more fun to believe that BYU is scared to play UW. And because that's more fun, that's what people are going to believe. It's easier, it's more fun. So their narrative has become BYU was scared to play UW. Bam. Really, really fun. Now, the reality is BYU didn't want to get dragged around and not have a commitment, but I understand. If you're BYU, you have to say yes to any game you're offered because it's terrible optics to say no. Here's the reality. I understand why BYU said no. They weren't getting a real commitment. But if BYU schedules a game against Washington, and then Washington pulls out and says, we can't play the game, the Pac-12 won't let us, then what does BYU become? BYU becomes a victim. BYU becomes the victim of the stupid Pac-12 bureaucracy. Bam, totally. But by saying no, by rejecting the game flat out, BYU looks scared and weak. It's delightfully juicy, really. There's a lot of drama here. But again, BYU has to understand, they have this tagline they've said all year. Any team, anytime, any place. BYU's quarterback, Zach Wilson, literally wears it on his headband. The problem with that tagline is that you have to live up to it. You have to If you're going to say that, you have to actually follow through. If you don't, you're not really living up to your core ethos. Saying you'll play any team, anytime, any place. The problem with that slogan is, again, you have to live up to it. BYU's 9-0. And they're an undefeated team trying to make it into the college football playoff. Whether it's right, wrong, indifferent, doesn't matter. By saying no to a game against Washington, BYU has cost themselves credibility. It's not comfortable, it's just true. So whatever person decided that they were going to say no to the game against Washington, whatever person at BYU, whoever made that decision at BYU, they made a mistake. Because BYU is a non-conference school. They're 9-0, but here's their schedule. They played Troy, Navy, Louisiana Tech, Texas San Antonio, Houston, Texas State, Western Kentucky, Boise State, and Northern Alabama. They're 9-0. They're going to play San Diego State later this year. They're 9-0. They're undefeated. Ooh, but they've played nobody. They haven't played anybody that college football really respects. They haven't played a single. There's not even a single Power 5 school on that list. Boise State's the biggest school they've played this year. Maybe one of the Navy, maybe Navy is, ? I don't even know. But my point is, there's not a single team on that list I just said that anybody respects in college football from a college football playoff perspective. So the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, they don't respect BYU. They didn't anyway, but by saying no, here's how BYU showed a lack of self-awareness. Because their attitude, BYU's attitude, needs to be one of desperation, eager to play any opponent made available to them. This year has been really kind of, obviously, BYU's gone through a lot of turmoil because of COVID. I mean, scheduling has been a nightmare because all the conferences basically shut down and said, we're only scheduling conference games. If you're not in our conference, we're not going to play you. BYU, half their schedule got erased. They had to scramble to reschedule new games. And BYU couldn't really get any big games. The Big Ten is playing only conference games. The Pac-12 only playing conference games. It's kind of a nightmare. And if you get a chance, you have to take it. Because if you're a small school that nobody respects and doesn't want there anyway, any chance you get to play a big school, you have to pounce at the opportunity. Remember, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee excluded the 12-0 2017 UCF football team because they didn't respect their schedule. And the problem is the committee has now found a justifiable reason to exclude BYU this year. The selection committee can say, look, guys, BYU, they didn't play anybody big, and even when they were given an opportunity to, big teams were offered those games, and they wouldn't even take it. That's unfortunate, but that's how they're going to look at it. They'll say, BYU wouldn't even play unranked University of Washington. They're 2-0. They've played Oregon State and Arizona. Both teams are 0-2. So University of Washington's not an impressive team. You wouldn't even play them? But you want to play Alabama? Are you crazy, BYU? That's how the College Football Selection Committee is going to look at it. And so by turning down a game against Washington, BYU cost themselves any tiny little sliver of hope they had at the college football playoff. Now, they didn't really have a shot to begin with. The entire time they were going to get excluded, college football was going to look for a way to keep them out of that playoff game. But now they won't. Now they don't even have to look because BYU justified their exclusion by saying no to University of Washington. A lot of people said that the reason why this game was even offered because it was a game that was never actually going to happen based on the Pac-12 rules. People are saying the Pac-12 released it simply because they don't like seeing BYU ahead of Oregon or USC. People are saying it was done. Like a conspiracy here is that people are just trying to make BYU look bad. It's possible, but it doesn't matter because the optics are terrible. And by saying no, they cost themselves any sliver of hope they had. Their reputation is tarnished, and they didn't live up to their motto, any team, anytime, any place. And as a result of saying no, BYU really, really hurt their chances and is going to cause them to be excluded for sure, 100% from the college football playoff.